So let's give the others some few minutes, then we get started. In the meantime, Naomi, we're in our last class to lift up. Is confirm if you have topic 7, audit documentation. Do you have the notes for that? Okay, so let's have a discussion on topic 7, audit documentation. Audit documentation as per the ISA 230. Remember, kwamba the main objective of an audit is to enable auditor to express an opinion on the financial statements. They are required to perform procedures to be able to obtain audit evidence, which shall form the basis of expressing that opinion. So the evidence gathered or obtained by the auditor needs to be documented. So the ISA 230 requires auditors to be able to maintain sufficient and appropriate auditor documentation in the form of the working papers, which shall enable them to arrive to a given audit opinion. So we want to go through this particular handout on topic 7, auditor documentation, as per the ISA 230. So according to ISA 230, the auditor should adequately document all materials that are relevant to the audit in working papers. So what are working papers? Working paper refers to all the materials prepared, collected, and retained by the auditor in connection with the audit. The working papers may be in form of data stored on paper, electronic storage media, or other storage media. So audit documentation is the record of all the audit procedures performed, relevant audit evidence obtained, and conclusion the auditor has reached. The note is now the importance of audit documentation. Why are these working papers important to the auditor?
Oh, excuse me.
Yes.
Okay, we have only on the group topic 8. We don't have topic 7.
So you've confirmed, yes.
I thought it's topic 8.
Okay, so let me work on it, then we come back, we continue. So audit documentation is at 230. It defines what's audit documentation. So according to ISA 230, the auditor should adequately document all materials that are relevant to the audit in working papers. Working papers refers to all the materials prepared, collected, and retained by the auditor in connection with the audit. The working papers may be in form of data stored on paper, electronic storage media, or other storage media. Audit documentation is the record of all the audit procedures performed, relevant audit evidence obtained, and conclusion the auditor has reached. Then now, what's the importance of audit documentation? So one, it provides evidence of the audit basis for a conclusion. Two, it provides evidence that the audit that audit was planned and conducted in accordance with the ISAs. Three, the working papers assist in providing direction and supervision to the staff. Four, it makes the staff accountable for the work they have performed. Five, it facilitates review of the work done. Six, the working papers can be used for training new recruits. Seven, they are used to control the current year's audit. Eight, The working papers can be used by the auditor as his defense in litigation against him. 9, preparation of the working papers forces the auditor to adopt a systematic approach to the audit, which enhances the quality of the audit. Then 10, the working papers can assist in investigation into the financial affairs of the client company. Then 11, the working papers can be used as a basis for negotiating the audit fee. And 12, it facilitates the subsequent year's audit planning. Then 13, it retains a record of matters that may continue to be important in the future audits. So before we carry on to the qualities of a good working paper, just want you to look at this particular question on August, the sitting of August 2022, the sitting of August 2022, question number 5A, August 2022. Sorry, not that question. So let's just hold on, not that question. So let's go to the qualities of good working papers. So what are some of the essential qualities of good working papers? So 1, they should be as complete as possible. That implies that they need to be complete, having all the necessary details captured with regard to the various audit procedures performed by the auditor. 2, they should be properly indexed. This one facilitates cross-referencing or retrieval of the working papers or record from the files wherever they've been kept. So an index is a primary key for locating a certain working paper or the record in the files where they have been stored. 4, they should be properly headed, where they should have a title. Every working papers are maintained by the auditor and needs to have appropriate title. 5, they should be properly bound. Yes, so either when you keep them in the files, it could be a spring file or a box file, they should be firmly attached together. Then 6, they should be well secured under key and lock. These working papers do contain confidential information or the secret information of the client. The client will expect the auditor to maintain confidentiality of these working papers. One of the assurance is that these working papers needs to be securely kept, for example, under key and lock. Next is that they should be properly prepared neatly and tightly so that they clearly and concisely and logically show the schedules, procedures, results of the test. Then 8, any personal judgment must be clearly explained. Then the last one, they should be kept for sufficient period of time. So we can ask ourselves what is considered to be sufficient period of time. Here, the sufficient period of time is between maybe 5, at least 5 to 7 years. Those working papers will be maintained between 5 to 7 years. There is a point there on the symbols, your quality number 3. Any symbol used must be clearly explained. So sometimes when auditors are documenting the procedures performed, the various function that goes into producing their accounting information, they may use symbols as a way of recording those documentation or the underlying procedures in the processing transaction. So one of the qualities that every symbols they are used must be clearly explained. For example, we have having such kind of a symbol used in the working papers. A symbol that looks like this. This one could be signifying an accounting record, an accounting record, or maybe a ledger, an accounting record or a ledger. Plus, we have a symbol like this one up, which means cross-referencing. I'm cross-checking. There was some cross-checking of the transaction by the auditor. We can also have a symbol like this one up, maybe. This one somehow means there was a filing procedures undertaken. A filing procedure was performed. We also have a line like this, This one says it means from that procedure is a from. We also have a very bold line. A very bold line that's continuous. This could be indicating that there is a strong ICS, a strong internal control system. We can also be having a symbol that looks like this. This one, it could be means that there was a margin. There was a margin or some documents. So anywhere, wherever those particular symbols are used, a clear explanation needs to be given with regard to what those symbols do mean. We have examples of audit documentation. Examples of audit documentation. So audit documentation may be recorded on paper, on electronic or other media, e.g. auditor program, 2, analysis, 3, issue memorandum, 4, summary of significant matters, 5, circularization letters and their responses, 6, checklist, 7, correspondences including emails concerning significant matters, 8, copies of the entity's records, such as contracts and agreements, etc. The 9, letters of representations, letters of internal weaknesses. Then the methods of gathering the working papers or the techniques used by the auditor to obtain the working papers. 1, making copies of the important documents. 2, recording all the procedures and results obtained. 3, recording all the questions raised and the responses obtained. 4, by taking notes on important areas of the client entity. Then 5, keeping copies of communication with the client. Then 6, filing reports of experts. 7, keeping responses obtained from third parties. 8, scanning important documents of the client. So we have organization of working papers. So this is now the arrangement in regard to keeping the working papers. So how is the working papers organized by the auditor? There are 2 files for doing this work. There are 2 files. One is a permanent audit file. Then the second one, current auditor file. So what makes the 2 files different is in terms of the contents of the working papers contained under each particular work. So for proper organization, there must be a classification of the working papers to be kept in a permanent audit file and also the current auditor file. So what's a permanent audit file? So this is a file used for putting the working papers that are of long-term importance to the auditor. So the key word there is that long-term importance to the auditor. Those are the working papers to be used by the auditor beyond the current years in audit, So what are the purposes of having a permanent audit file? So 1, to document information which is of recurring value regarding appearing in the financial statements. 2, to document information of permanent nature regarding the client. Then 3, to give the auditor staff who are auditing for the first time information regarding the client's affairs and the nature of the audit. So the example of the working papers are stored in the permanent audit file. 1, copies of the client's statutory documents, such as the articles of association and memorandum of association, certificate of incorporation, list of shareholders. Then 2, other statutory materials, such as copies of the Companies Act, Nairobi Stock Exchange Regulation. 3, copies of the documents of continuing importance and relevant to the auditors, such as the engagement letters. 4, the client's physical and postal address. 5, list of the company's lawyers, bankers, stockbrokers, insurance brokers, and advisors. 6, the organization structure showing the top management functions and division of responsibilities in the company. 7, a description of the entities of business and its operations. 8, copies of important client legal documents such as contracts, lease agreements. 9, a brief history of the company and a summary of the annual accounts. Those are some of the examples of the working papers that shall be kept on the permanent auditor file. So next we move on to the current auditor file. So what's a current audit file? So this is a file used for putting the working papers that are of short-term importance to the auditor. Short-term importance to the auditor, that is a key word. So short-term in the sense that they're supposed to be used for the current year's audit. Then the purpose of current audit working papers. Number 1, to provide a record of the work planned in the current years of audit. 2, to detail the work performed, including the procedures are followed, tests performed, information obtained, and the conclusions reached. 3, to enable any person, especially the audit reporting partner, reviewing the audit to satisfy himself that an adequate examination of the financial statement has been carried out. So class, what are the contents of the working papers in the current audit file? So 1, copies of the current year's financial statements duly assigned. And next, a schedule of each item included in the income statement and comparative. 3, a schedule of each item included in the statement of financial position and comparatives. 4, the audit plan and auditor programs. 5, a record of the questions raised and the answers obtained. 6, internal control questionnaires. 7, a copy of the management letter. 8, the letter of representation. Then the last one, copies of circularization letters. So that's all on the 2 files, very important files in the audit. You need to be able to understand what those 2 files do mean, and the working papers are contained in each particular audit file. So let's go to factors influencing the forms and the contents of working papers. So the ISA 230 also provides guidelines in considering certain factors that has got an influence on the forms and the contents of the working papers. So which are factors that are considered? 1 is the nature of the audit engagement. Is it a fixed audit engagement or it's a variable audit engagement? That will also have an influence on the forms and the content of the working papers. And next, the size and complexity of the entity. If the entity is bigger and complicated, that means a lot of work has to be done. A lot of audit procedures will be performed. For that particular case, more audit evidence shall be obtained by the auditor. 3, the nature of the audit procedures to be performed is which kind of audit procedures are being undertaken by the auditor. Is it observation? Is it inquiry? Is it analytical review procedures? Will also have an influence on the form and the nature of the working papers. And next, the identified risk of material misstatements. Where the identified risk of material misstatement is high, then that means more audit procedures will be done, and also has an influence on the form and the content of the working papers. 5, significance of audit evidence obtained. 6, the nature and extent of the exceptions identified. 7, the specific audit methodology used. Is the auditor using a voucher-based audit approach, system-based audit approach, the risk-based audit approach, or any other methodology? We also have an influence on the form and the content of the working papers. 8, the nature and the condition of the client's internal control system and accounting system. So the nature is on the effectiveness of the system. Is the system weak or maybe strong? For example, where we have a weaker system, that means more substantive procedures will be undertaken and having a heavy influence on the form and the content of the working papers to be gathered and maintained by the auditor. The next, the need in the particular circumstances for direction and review. Yes, I need to review the working papers upon the conclusion of performing certain auditing tests and procedures. So those are the factors that do influence the form and the content of working papers. So check a question on November 2020. November 2020, question number 1C. November 2020, question number 1C. November 2020, question number 1C. So question number 1C. International standards on auditing is 230. Audit documentation provides guidance to auditors in respect of audit working papers. So required, summarize 6 factors which could affect the form and content of audit working papers. The summarizer, 6 factors which could affect the form and content of audit working papers. So which factors will have effect on the form and the content of audit working papers? We have the answers there. So one, it shall be what? The nature of the audit engagement, the size and complexity of the entity, the nature of the audit procedures to be performed, the identified risk of material misstatements, significance of audit evidence obtained, the nature and extent of exceptions identified, the specific auditor methodology used, the nature and condition of the client ICS and accounting system. Then the last one, the need in the particular circumstances for direction and review. So any of the 6 would have earned you the 6 marks. So let's now move on to the limitation of gathering working papers. So what are some of the challenges experienced by the auditor when they are out there performing procedures to be able to obtain the working papers? So one is a lack of cooperation from the client staff and management. Is where the staff are not willing to cooperate with the auditor, maybe to provide information or to allow auditor to perform some of the auditing procedures. It may affect them from being able to obtain the much needed working papers. 2 is the lack of cooperation from the third parties, e.g. non-replies to a circular. Yes, for example, auditors writing to the debtors to confirm some information with them and they do not reply back to the auditor. For that case, auditor will not be able to obtain the much needed audit evidence. 3, it may be expensive and time consuming exercise. So where auditors uses something like the questionnaire to try to get more evidence information from some of the parties. 4, technicality of the client business. Yes, auditors have a limited skills of expertise in certain areas. So some technical areas may require involving the experts. If those experts are not around, auditors will get vastly affected in obtaining sufficient appropriate audit evidence. 5, incomplete record. Yeah, so where there is some missing records, some incomplete data or information that will also affect the auditors to be able to obtain adequate and sufficient audit working papers. The next is the weaknesses in the client system, such as a supportive documents. So those are the limitations of obtaining or gathering working papers. So what are the reasons why? What are some of the reasons why? Auditors may refer to the previous year's audit working papers. Is why are some of the reasons that may make you as an auditor to make references to the previous year's working papers. In a topic 4 on the engagement procedures, we saw that auditors need to obtain professional clearance by reaching out to the outgoing auditor. One of the reasons that they're able to obtain the previous working papers. So why are those working papers also important to the auditor, even though they relate to the previous audit? So one, it enables auditor to obtain background knowledge about the client. Two, to establish the basis of planning the current year's audit. Three, to check the difficulties encountered in the previous year's audit. 4, to identify the queries that were raised and were not cleared in the previous year. 5, to check the reporting framework applied by the client. In that case, they want to check if that reporting framework is applicable with regard to the financial statements preparation. 6, to confirm that the misstatements identified in the previous year's audit have been corrected. 7, to avoid bothering the client's management and staff with the issues that already had been represented to them. So those are some of the reasons why auditors may make reference to the previous year's auditor working papers. So next we have the classification of audit working papers. There are only 2 main classifications of the audit working papers. One, standardized working papers. Then the second one is automated working papers. So this is not the first time I'm meeting the word standardized. No kwamba kitu kikiwa standardized, it means that it is a uniform. The content of such kind of working papers has been determined in advance. It has been predetermined or prepared in advance. The automated is one that's applied in the area of computer system. So we begin by the standardized working papers. So these are an approach where the auditor uses standardized pre-prepared audit manual developed by the audit firm to be used for all audits. The manual will contain, e.g., standardized auditor programs, standardized bank letters, standardized internal control questionnaires. Then the last one, standardized data circularization letters. Number 2, we have got automated auditor files or automated working papers. So these are computer programs used by the auditor to make documentation easy and to assist in analyzing the client's records. Such software assists the auditor in extracting data from the client's database and analyzing such data. So what are the advantages of automated working papers? What are the benefits of the automated working papers? So what value do they add to the auditor whenever it comes to performing auditing work? So once that they free up a storage space in the audit firm's office. So instead of having too many cabinets, keeping your files there or maintaining your file system in the most traditional way, your file or the records shall be kept happy for the computer, and that one eases the office space and making that environment to be more worker flexible. Then 2, they are safe, more secure, as they are not subject to damage through wear and tear. Three, they can be transmitted electronically, hence a high possibility of sharing work between people in different remote locations. Four, they are near and easy to review. Five, they're easy to update and edit. Six, they facilitate quick assessment of risk. Seven, they guarantee a high level of accuracy. Then eight, large amount of data can be scanned and tested. Nine, they encourage uniformity of work since standard formats can be saved. 10, they facilitate faster communication of data. Then the disadvantages of using automated auditor files, one is a lack of computer and knowledge. It requires one to at least be computer proficient to be able to use automated auditor working papers. Two, risk of data corruption by the viruses. Three, auditor software may not be compatible with the client software. So lack of compatibility is also very serious a challenge whenever it comes to the two systems working together. Then for the computer software may be expensive to develop or purchase. Five, there is a high risk of unauthorized data alteration. Six, the risk of loss of confidentiality as the data is transmitted electronically, especially when it has been, the system has been hacked and authorized access has been gained, then the confidential data might be lost to the third party. Then it requires a lot of computer time. Last one, the port software will become obsolete, requiring constant updating, which may be expensive. So that will now bring us to the end on the types or the classification of working papers that you need to know. So next part is on ownership and custody of working papers. Ownership and custody of working papers. So the question up is that who should have the custody rights for the working papers? Who should be able to own and have the custody of the working papers? Is it maybe the client or the auditor? So this matter went to court in 1938. In 1938, and the court made a ruling over these contentious issues between the auditor and the client on who should be having the ownership and the custody of the working papers. Whenever you go to the court, you must be able to present what? The facts. So the client and the auditor presented their facts, giving arguments why they should be the owners of the working papers. So to begin with the client stated the following. One, they said that the working papers were collected from their company, which is very right. Those working papers, they were gathered by the auditor from their company. The other one, they said that the client paid the auditor a fee for the services rendered, which is all right. Auditors are engaged by the client to offer a service. And whenever you offer service, the return for it is what? Is a payment. And for auditor in this case, they are paid auditing fee. The client also gave an argument that the auditor is an agent of the client. An auditor is an agent of the client. There is no relationship of agency principle between the auditor and the client. So that one was not correct. The fourth one, the working papers contained the secrets of the client. That's true. The working papers do contain the client's confidential information. If shared with maybe the competitor, the client may lose some of the competitive advantages. The auditor also, on the other end, also gave their facts why they should be the bona fide owners of the working papers. One, they said the working papers were gathered or obtained by themselves. Through their own effort, they were able to have those working papers gathered, which is very right. Another one, they said these working papers support them in arriving to audit conclusion or an audit opinion, which is also very right. Auditors need the working papers to support their conclusion. It is the basis of making their auditor opinion. The other one, they say, these working papers, they can be used in a court to defend themselves in case they're being what? Sued, which is very right. Auditors will require the working papers in case maybe a certain party take them to court. The other one, auditors say that they are not agent to the client. Auditors are independent contractor, which is also very right. Auditors are not agent to the client. Auditors are independent contractor. So the court ruled in favor of the auditor to be the one having the custody of the working papers. Because also the Company Act give the auditor one of the right nature, the right of lien, the right of lien. Auditors can exercise a right of lien to withhold those working papers until certain matter has been addressed by either the client. And also the ISA 230, it recognizes auditors to be the bona fide owners of the working papers. For that case, it is the auditors who should be able to own and have custody of the working papers. But that alone should not be more than 5 to maybe 6 years. So working papers needs to be maintained for at least a period of 5 to 6 years. So that's all on the part of ownership and custody of working papers. So next part, we move on to audit quality control. Auditor quality control as per the ISA 220 and international standards on quality control work. So remember, auditors are expected to provide to perform a quality audit work. They must be able to perform a quality auditor work. The audit report produced by them should meet certain quality desirable standards. So it doesn't specify maybe the level of the standard requirement in terms of the quality to be achieved out of auditors' work. Now, we have firms at different levels. So the quality levels may vary depending on where the firm is positioned in the industry. Or like on this level here, so here we have the big four. Big four audit firms, the big four audit firms, for example, KPMG. We have Ernst & Young, EY. We have PwC, PwC, and then that's what we have Deloitte and Touch. Some of the big four audit firms. So in terms of the quality standards, theirs will be set at a higher level. The upper, for example, we have what we call the medium-sized audit firms. For example, we have the Mazars audit firms, PKF, some of the medium-sized audit firms. Then when we come down here, we have the small audit firms. The small audit firms. This was maybe with 2 partners or 3 partners. So in terms of the quality standards, it may vary depending on the size of the auditor firm. For the big four firm at a higher level, followed by the medium-sized audit firm, maybe at a moderate level, then by the small firms, where there are 2 partners, 3 partners, 4 partners at a lower level. So within the audit firm, we have a structure. We have a structure for how responsibilities are only distributed. So at the very top, the senior partners, sometimes some cases they're called also the directors. Then the next level, we have the senior auditors. Then upper we have the supervisors, the supervisors there. Then the lower level upper audit assistants. Also have audit juniors. They also have the graduate interns. Essentially, here is a management structure of an audit firm, just an example one. It may vary from one audit firm to the other, depending on maybe their environmental factors or the industry on which they are getting their clients. They also form the decision of which kind of a structure they're going to adopt. However, still every firm needs to have a right organization, a structure where responsibilities are clearly defined. Every auditor there or every personnel there understand what are their responsibility, and also the clear reporting lines of how the authority flows from the top to the bottom. And the bottom summer, they be supervising the senior auditors. The senior auditors being supervising or seeing the supervisors. The supervisors supervising the lower level staff. So that's the reported over whom they report to. The immediator or who are the immediator or this kind of a structure, they are able to understand that one clearly. So why is an auditor should be worried whenever it comes to quality is due to the risk factor. The risk that they may make inappropriate opinion, or the risk that their image could be, so their reputation could be injured, or the risk that their license will also be withdrawn. For that case, they are guided to follow the international standards of quality 220. So we can go through our handout there on page number 6. So we begin by ICQC 1, international standards for quality controls. So when the auditor accepts appointment, he exposes himself to a number of risks. For example, the risk of giving an inappropriate opinion. The risk of giving an inappropriate opinion. And that's an audit risk. The chance that the auditor may express inappropriate opinion that the financial statements are materially misstated. There are three components of this particular risk. Three components of an audit risk. Three components of audit risk, which includes one, inherent risk. Number two, control risk. And that's number three, detection risk. So that's why one of the reasons why auditors are so much interested with the quality, to just be able to reduce that particular risk to a low acceptable level. Number two, the risk of damages. You're being sued by a party asking for maybe what? Compensation for the damages suffered. Three, the risk of adverse publicity. The reputation adversely affected in a negative way. Four, the risk of losing the client and future prospective clients. Then five, withdrawal of the practicing certificate. So what are they supposed to be doing? So to mitigate against the above risk, ISA 220 requires the audit firm to implement quality control procedures at two levels. One, at the audit firm level, So at the audit firm level, there are certain things that they need to get right. Then 2, at the individual auditor engagement level or at the individual assignment level. So the ESA provides implementation of the quality control procedures at 2 levels, at the overall firm level, then at the individual assignment level. So what are the objectives of the standard ISA 220? What are the objectives of the quality control procedures? 1, to ensure that the audit report issued by the audit firm is appropriate in the circumstances. That's the first one, yes, to enable auditors to provide appropriate auditor report. That means that they're able to give a correct opinion pertaining to the financial statements audited by them. They should not give incorrect opinion by the financial statements. That's only possible if they're well guided. They're able to follow the standards to the letter in performing the auditor work and able to detect any material statements contained in the client financial statements. Then 2, to ensure that the audit firm and its personnel comply with the professional and technical standards and the applicable legal and regulatory requirements. Yeah, so it's like an enforcement to ensure that the personnel and the audit firm itself is able to comply with the professional and technical standards and also the legal requirements. So quality control procedures at the individual audit engagement level. Quality control procedures at the individual audit engagement level. So we have 8 of them, 8 procedures ways, which needs to be implemented by the audit firm. So one is the client acceptance procedures. And number 2, the engagement team. Number 3, direction. Number 4, supervision. Number 5, consultation. Number 6, documentation. Number 7, monitoring. Then number 8, review. There is a mnemonic that you can use to remember or recall those particular quality control procedures at the assignment level. So we can use this one, sacred M, to identify those quality control procedures. Sacred M to identify those quality control procedures. Where S there is supervision. S for supervision. S for supervision. Then A for client acceptance procedures. A for client acceptance procedures. Then C, consultation. C, consultation. Then R, review. R, review. Then E, engagement team. E, engagement team. Then D, direction. D, direction. Then the next D apple is for documentation. Then the last one, M, is for monitoring. So you can use that separate M to be able to identify the quality control procedures as per the ISA 220. So let's begin by having a discussion on the first one, which is the client acceptance procedures. The client acceptance procedures. We can recall topic 4. The topic 4 under the very first stage of an audit, which is an engagement, the client acceptance procedures. Before auditors accept the appointment or the nomination, there are factors there, all the factors to be considered. The same also applies here when it comes to looking at the quality control procedures as part of the client acceptance procedures. So the engagement partner should conclude on whether all the engagement procedures have been considered and finalized. This includes one, potential threat to independency has been considered. They should ensure that there is no any independency threat that could be affecting their objectivity or impair their independency once they begin doing the audit work for the client. For that case, they must be able to identify the independency threats among their staff that could be affecting them later when it comes to making a judgment or making a conclusion. Two, the management integrity has been considered. Very important. Must do the due diligence, proper client screening to ascertain whether the managers do have got integrity. If you fail to do so, that might expose you to engagement risk. Next, the auditor has to ensure there is no conflict of interest, either the financial interest or any other interest that could impair the auditor's independence. Four, the audit firm has to consider availability of resources to complete the audit. So the resources upper is either time, do they have time to do the audit? Do they have enough equipment like the computers to perform that audit? Do they have the funds or the money to be effective in doing the audit work? Next, there is about clearance has been obtained from the predecessor auditor. That part of the professional clearance has to be obtained from the previous auditor. It's a matter of just a professional courtesy that the incoming auditor and the outgoing auditor needs to communicate. Through that one, the incoming auditor will be able to obtain some important information from the predecessor auditor. Like, for example, the predecessor auditor may provide the incoming auditor with the previous working papers, which will facilitate the planning of the audit, understanding maybe the client entity much better. At the same time, here, confirm whether the outgoing auditor removal was done in accordance with the legal procedures. Then next is our ethical requirements have been complied with. Yes, we need to ask ourselves that all these members meet the ethical requirements. Are they people of integrity? Are they objective? Are they able to exercise confidentiality? Are they able to maintain professional competency and due care, and also professional behavior? So in short, we must need to ask ourselves whether they're ethically qualified to do the job. The number two is the engagement team. Again, the engagement partners have things to do here. They should ensure that the engagement team collectively has skills, competency, and time to do the audit. So the engagement partner should assess the team, one, by looking at experience in similar auditor assignments. They have got experience in maybe related audit assignments. Two, understanding of the professional technical standards and legal requirements. Do they understand the various professional technical standards and maybe legal requirements? Another one is the ability to make professional judgment. Yes, do they have that ability, the strength to make professional judgment? Professional judgment is the application of knowledge, skills, and experience to make a well-informed judgment. It's especially applied when it comes to evidence gathering, where you have to make a conclusion. In that case, your professional judgment skills, knowledge, and experience will be required. Next on the technical knowledge and expertise, e.g. IT, is do they have maybe the basic IT skills, or are they computer proficient? And next, the knowledge of the industry. Yes, how much do they understand the industry which the client business do operates from? The other one is the understanding the audit firm's quality control procedures. Yes, do they master? Do they have that understanding of what it entails with regard to various quality control procedures? The number three procedure is on direction. So direction upper is a part of leadership. Is the seniors there need to provide a a much needed leadership. Remember, they have got an objective to be achieved. So there should be somebody who inspire the team, or direct the team towards the attainment of that particular objective. So the engagement partner should be directed by the engagement team should be directed by the engagement partner and the auditor as senior. So they must be given proper direction, proper leadership by their seniors. An engagement planning meeting should take place in which the members of the team are informed of some of the following. Like one, the responsibilities, including the need to comply with the ethical requirements. Second one, the objectives of the audit of financial statements. So why are we auditing financial statements? And the main objective is basically to what? Express an opinion in compliance with some of the statutory requirements. The other one is the objectives of the work to be performed. Next, risk-related issues. Next, the general audit methodology to be used. Methodology is just a collection of the approaches or a method. Auditors may use system-based audit approach, forging-based audit approach, or the risk-based auditor approach. It needs to be briefed on which method are the audit firm going to use in auditing the client financial statements. They have to be briefed also on the problems, how to deal with the problems that may arise during the audit. In this case, yes, if there is a problem, there is a challenge, you should be open to consultation. You should be open to seek consultation. Then 5 is supervision. So the kind of a supervision being advocated by the standard upper is that closer supervision, but also very minimum supervision. So the superiors should not lose control of what is happening with regard to the performance of the audit work. They must be able to keep on checking the progress, how the audit juniors are undertaking their responsibilities, whether they are following the laid down instructions and maybe the plan. So the supervisors should be, the supervision should be continuous during the audit. The senior members of the team should supervise the work of the junior members. And whenever they do so, they should be checking whether they are following the audit programs. Are they following the audit procedures as stated in those documents? To track the progress of the auditors. So how far have we gone with regard to our audit plan? Are we within the plan, or we are below, or we are behind the time frame? Next is to address significant matters arising during the audit. Next, to check whether the audit staff are competent enough to carry out the work. Next, to identify matters for further consultation. Then 5 is consultation. It's also we are consulting there. So it also needs to provide mechanisms on how the staff members are able to consult out in case they experience some of the auditing problems or the challenges. So the engagement partner should arrange of consultation on difficult and contentious issues. For example, in application of a newly pronounced standard. It could be an accounting standard application or an auditing standard application. When auditing organization with complex reporting requirements, when there is a disagreement with the management on accounting policy, next, when a qualified opinion is to be issued. A qualified opinion contains an unfavorable opinion. So before the auditor issues it, he needs to seek consultation. He needs to seek legal and professional advice on how to go with regard to that particular matter. If there are certain issues that can be addressed, And for that case, auditors end up issuing a qualified opinion, then the better for the client. Kwa sababu a qualified audit report has got a negative consequences, and that can adversely affect the client business. For that case, consultation will be required in case of issuing a qualified opinion. Number 6 of their procedure is on documentation. It's the part of this chapter which auditors are required to maintain sufficient, appropriate, adequate documentation. Any procedure, any conclusion, any work performed needs to be documented. So all important aspects of the audit must be adequately documented. For example, the audit procedures carried out, the findings and the conclusion drawn. In addition, areas where consultation was sought and the conclusion arrived at should be documented. The next we have monitoring. So monitoring is also a very key process because I want to check whether the quality control procedures are effective. Are they contributing to the intended objectives? Are they functioning effectively? So the seniors there must be able to keep on monitoring the progress on how they are implementing the various quality control procedures. The number 8, we have got review, which is now the last quality control procedures at the assignment level. So reviewing the working papers is whenever you do a review, you're reviewing the working papers. You're doing a review on the work which has already been done by the auditor staff. But the matters that you want to check there, for example, did the staff who performed the audit had the competency skills required? Were they also ethically qualified? Did they follow the audit plan and the audit programs in doing the audit? Did that audit that was conducted by them meet the quality sites? We have the types of doing the review, hot review, post-audit review, second partner review, then the last one, the peer review. You should need to take note that there are 3 main types of review, which is the most important that we need to know. We're going to go the audit review, audit review. Number 2, cold review, cold review, cold review. The number 3 we have peer review, peer review. It's hot review, cold review, then peer review. So we're tofauti between hot and cold. So hot is that kind of a review done when the audit work is still progressing. When you've not concluded doing the audit, during that period of the ongoing auditing work, the review of the work which has already been done can be reviewed by an independent personnel within the auditor firm. Then cold review is a kind of a review that comes after concluding the audit work, but before drafting an audit report, before drafting an auditor report. The objective of a cold review is to focus on the future audit. We want to look at the areas that we are able to improve on our quality in the future audits. Then you have our peer review. Peer review is a kind of a review done at the same level or position of influence. It can be either internal peer review or external peer review. Internal review or peer review. Shall we come to look at them later on the peer, so the internal peer review and external peer review. Like in the case of these audit firms, the big 4 firms can do their review at their own level there, but you can't find a situation whereby a medium-sized audit firm is being appointed to come and do a review of the big 4 auditing firm, or a small audit firm is being appointed or is being tasked to go and do a review of the big 4 firms. That one is not economical, doesn't also make what sense. So whenever it comes to the peer review, those 2 firms need to be at the same level of the operations or the same level of the sizes. We know who is responsible for the coordinating peer review. When you're looking at the roles of the professional bodies, one of the roles of the professional bodies like ISPAC is to coordinate the audit peer reviews, to coordinate audit peer reviews. So let's take some few minutes break. Then when you come, we continue this part of the reviews. So we are looking for NCI and awards. Okay. It means we are addressing the issue of so you come here and say NCI's equity. NCI's equity. Maybe one is a channel. They are also sectors. And the NCI, they were two. There was NCI. Or if they just provided, that's India. That's India was. So what to do? Can you check those people? Check the those areas. Check the those areas. In the last, because we are preparing balance there was 45. Then we get our needs. Get our needs. 24, 5, 19, 8, 91. So when you add this company was having properly 21, 8, 19. Now, there are things which we to adjust, but quite a little. You know, my notes value for 40%. But before that, there is a problem. Can you go back to my current question? Go back to my current question. Are you thinking investments in sports? Investment in sports. How much is the investment in sports? Investment in sports. That's it. So by days, appearing in schools. Do you remember when you were calculating? You never because when parents go to acquire super, they realize super is already so parents so my very complain about the we don't have come and say less investment in sports. Super invested in sports. So minority. So we need to come from that place. And now I want to tell you the audience are we come and say less
UPI. Why am I subtracting UPI? But on one condition, that the member that the stream of this one upstream must be or if upstream means super force, then also there. We should confirm that all of them are so 15. Impairment, less impairment. Impairment loss. Only when you are using this method. All means you will be able to do correct. This method we use this method. This method we use this method. And finally, there was excess. Excess what? Excess liquidation. Who was that liquidation? It was the one who was the one who sees that. Was also super. So super is the one who was tracking excess liquidation data. When you charge excess, you are increasing your form. So how is that? Can you get for me this as an aspect of increase? So therefore, NCI is super 10%. In cost, so take only 10% of this, then 15% of this. So 10% of this. Then take the change of this. Whatever you get, I don't have this. What you get, then you get here.
So let's continue the types of quality control review. So number one, hot review. These are regular review that takes as the audit is progressing, where the working papers produced by the junior members of the audit team are checked by more senior members of the team, e.g. audit manager. Purpose of the regular review: one, to check whether the work has been performed in accordance with the ISA's audit plan and auditor programs, to check whether the staff are understanding the instructions. 3, to check whether the conclusions expressed are consistent with the findings. 4, to check that the significant matters have been raised for consideration. 5, to check whether the staff are competent enough to continue with the audit. 6, to check whether there is need to change the audit approach. Then post-audit review. Post-audit review is the same as the cold review. So this is also the final review or overall review of the audit. This is the review that takes place after the audit has been completed, but before the audit report is written and signed. It is done by the management partner who has the ultimate responsibility for committing the audit firm when signing the auditor report. The engagement partner does the review in liaison with the auditor manager. We have the matters considered during the final review, like 1, whether the financial statements comply with the relevant financial reporting framework. 2, appropriateness of the accounting policies used. 3, whether the presentation of the financial statements have been influenced by the directors' desire to present the matters in a more favorable way. Next, the impact of the aggregate error, the validity of the going concern assumption, significant subsequent events, other information in documents containing audited financial statements, consideration of whether the evidence gathered in the course of the audit supports the audit opinion. This includes considering 1, whether all the planned procedures were completed, whether sufficient appropriate audit evidence has been gathered, whether the overall audit plan was followed, whether there were any consultation within and outside the firm and the outcome. Next, performing final analytical review procedures. Last one, considering whether appropriate written management representation have been obtained. Then the third review is a second partner review. So this is where an independent partner from the audit firm who did not take part in the audit is called upon to come and review the working papers and form an independent conclusion. Then for peer review is an independent review of the audit firm, auditing and accounting practice. It's classified into 2, internal peer review, then external peer review. So internal peer review, this is where a group of independent partners who did not take part in the audit will confirm that the quality control procedures were followed. Significant risk identified during the audit and the auditor's responses. Whether documentation reflects the work performed, judgments with respect to materiality and risk, evaluation of the audit firm's independence towards the audit, appropriateness of the proposed auditor report. Then 2, external peer review. This is where another audit firm is engaged to check whether the audit firm in question follows the quality control procedures and how relevant the procedures are. So then objectives of peer review. Why is a peer review done? To promote a compliance with the professional standards and other technical pronunciation, to provide assurance to the users of the financial statements that professional standards have been followed in the performance of the audit, to promote uniform application of professional practices, to create mechanism of continuous quality improvement in the professional practice, to ensure that auditors are competent and independent, to identify weaknesses in the audit processes and provide technical assistance for professional development. So we have challenges are faced by the small firms of CPS in implementing quality control procedures. And that's why to on different levels of the attainment or considering the quality standards. So small farms are adversely affected, and the reasons why, like one, on consultation, small farms of the CPS may lack sufficient partners with sufficient experience for consultation. So what can they do as a recommendation? Make use of external consultation. Second area of a challenge is on training. Small farms with CPS may not have sufficient resources to establish an in-house training function. So what can they do as part of the recommendation? Sponsor the staff to attend external training programs. Then three, competence and experience. Small firms with the CPA may lack the staff with the required competence and experience to carry out an auditor engagement. So recommendation, get secondment of the staff from other practices or subcontract. Then four, working papers. A small firm of a CPA may not have developed in-house set of audit manuals or working papers due to lack of resources. So recommendation, audit manual can be obtained from the external firms or professional bodies. So those are some of the four areas of challenges to the small firms whenever it comes to complying to the quality control procedures. And lastly, go to the elements of a system of quality control as per the ISQC 1, the International Standards on Quality Control 1. There are matters there that needs to be addressed as part of meeting the quality control objectives. So one is the leadership responsibilities for qualities within the firm. So quality to be achieved, it also comes from the commitment of the topmost leaders within the audit firm. They should be able to provide the much needed leadership, being able to motivate the team, inspire the team towards the attainment of quality. They should be able to inculcate a good corporate culture which supports a continuous quality improvement. So the auditor firm should establish policies and procedures designed to promote an internal culture that recognizes the importance of quality in performing engagement. The board of partners should assume the ultimate responsibility of the audit firm systems of quality control. Two is relevant ethical requirements. The audit firm should establish policies and procedures designed to provide it with reasonable assurance that the firm and its personnel comply with the relevant ethical requirements, which include confidentiality, objectivity, integrity, independence. Then three, acceptance and continuous of client relationship and specific engagements. The audit firm should establish policies and procedures for acceptance and continuous of client relationship and specific engagements designed to provide the firm with a reasonable assurance that it will only undertake or continue the relationship and engagement where the firm is competent to perform engagement, has the capacity, time, and resources to do so. The firm can comply with the relevant ethical requirements. The firm has considered the integrity of the client. The number four, human resources. The audit firm should have policies and procedures designed to ensure that it has sufficient personnel with the competence, capabilities, and commitment to ethical principle. In addition, the firm should assign responsibility to those who are competent to perform it. So how can they do that one? By having effective recruitment procedures having effective performance evaluation to appraise the staff performance, then career development that can be achieved through maybe training programs. The number 5, engagement performance. The audit firm should establish policies and procedures to ensure engagements are performed in accordance with the professional standards and the applicable legal and regulatory requirements, and that the firm issues reports that are appropriate in the circumstances. Then the last one is monitoring. The audit firm should establish policies and procedures to monitor the quality of the quality control over time, i.e. to check whether the quality controls are relevant, adequate, and operating effectively. So kuna only one item which is remaining, so we can finish up with that part, is auditor's diary or auditor's notebook. So besides the working papers, auditors need also to maintain a notebook or a diary. That one helps them to note down very important matters that may come across during maybe the meetings, the discussions, or as they perform an audit work. So let's write this one, auditor's notebook, auditor's notebook. Let's put down this auditor's notebook. In addition to the maintenance of the working papers, in addition to the maintenance of the working papers, in addition to the maintenance of the working papers, auditors, especially those doing field work, 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 may maintain a diary, may maintain a diary, may maintain a diary in the name of an audit notebook, in the name of an audit notebook, in the name of an audit notebook. Such a diary is important. Such a diary is important. Such a diary is important for doing significant, for noting significant items, for noting significant items, queries, or matters. For noting significant items, queries, or matters. Requiring further discussion, requiring further discussion, requiring further discussion, either with the client's officials, either with the client's officials or senior members of the engagement team, or senior members of the engagement team, or senior members of the engagement team. Such a diary may also serve as a reminder. Such a diary may also serve as a reminder. Such a diary may also serve as a reminder to the auditors, to the auditors, to the auditors of the matters that may be overlooked, to the matters that may be overlooked during the audit process, of the matters that may be overlooked during the audit process. Let's go to the contents of the audit diary, contents of the auditor diary, contents of the auditor diary. So one, a list of the books of accounts, a list of the books of accounts, or records maintained by the client. A list of the books of accounts or records maintained by the client. A list of the books of accounts or records maintained by the client. Number two, a list of names, a list of names and titles, a list of names and titles of the client's officials, a list of names and titles of the client's officials, indicating their responsibilities. Indicating their responsibilities. Next, a list of points or issues, a list of points or issues requiring clarification, or explanation from the client's officials, or explanation from the client's officials. And next, details of any missing documents, details of any missing documents. And next, a list of errors, irregularities, and fraud, a list of errors, irregularities, and fraud. The auditors may discover, the auditors may discover, so the auditors may have discovered, the auditors may have discovered, which may require to be included in the management letter, which may require to be included in the management letter, which may be required to be included in the management letter. Next, a schedule of important dates, a schedule of important dates, a schedule of important dates, each date of commencement of the audit, each date of commencement of the audit, and the dates of the key events, and the date of the key events, and the dates of the key events, which will take place during the audit process, which will take place during the auditor process, which will take place during the auditor process. Yes, Wambui, want me to repeat which point? Point 4. Details of any missing documents. Details of any missing documents. So that will now bring us to the end of that topic, audit documentation. So questions, you can look at these questions at your own free time. So January 2022, question 2B, January 2022, question 2B. Also January 2022, question 1B, January 2022, question 1B. May 2017, question 2B, May 2017, question 2B, May 2017, question 2B, November 2015, November 2015, question 1C, November 2015, question 1C, question 1C. So let's maybe go through your November 2015, question 1C, November 2015, question 1C. In the context of international standards on auditing, is 220, quality control for financial statements. Discuss the quality control procedures the engagement partner might consider in each of the following: client acceptance, then 2, the engagement team, then number 3, direction. So the examiner wants you to identify the matters that will be considered in implementing quality control procedures, either at the client acceptance, engagement team, alafu na the direction. So if you refer to the page 7 and page 8 of our handout, you'll get the answers on the matters to be considered. For example, the client acceptance, adequate resources, integrity of the management, ethical requirements, independency of the team, etc. So that will now bring us to the end of that topic 7. So when we meet next week, we shall be looking at topic 8.